Thank you, Johnny. That was great. I think I recognize the guy in the hat.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to see a show of hands here. Dog people and cat people. How many people here, show of hands, are cat people? Okay. How many people are dog people? Okay, here's a little joke for both of you. German Shepherd, a Doberman, and a cat died. In heaven, all three faced God, who wanted to know what they believed. The German Shepherd said, I believe in discipline, training, and loyalty to my master. God said, good. Sit at my right side. Doberman, what do you believe in? Asked God. The Doberman answered, I believe in love, care, and protection of my master. Aha, God said, you may sit at my left side. Then God looked at the cat and asked, what do you believe in? The cat replied, I believe you are sitting in my seat. The differences between dogs and cats. Welcome, everyone. My name is Fran Polacco. This is my first wife, Fran, most of you know. Today is Sunday, March 160th, or that's somehow sometimes the way it feels. These COVID times feel like the movie Groundhog Day. We keep living the same day over and over again, it seems. 2020 has been quite a year, hasn't it? I saw a post on Facebook the other day that made me laugh. It was a picture of Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street, and it said, 2020 has been brought to you today by the letters W, T, and F. Not since the 1960s have we seen a time in this country that has been so tumultuous. Many of us are old enough to remember the 60s. 68 through 69, we had protests, riots, conservatives and liberals in the deepest political divide, perhaps since the Civil War. Police beating protesters, televised on the evening news, racial unrest, and the H3N2 virus killing 100,000 people in the US and 1 million people worldwide. Does all this sound a little too familiar? Now add to that the quarantine, 30 million people out of work, and it's been quite a year, hasn't it? And it's not over yet. Yikes. Even if you're well off and famous, you're not immune to the effects these times have had on you. Michelle Obama recently revealed in a podcast that she's been dealing with low-grade depression due to the effects of the quarantine and news about civil unrest and politics. I know for me, whenever I go out to a store nowadays, I kind of feel like this guy. Cue the monk video. Feels like a jungle out there sometimes. My wife and I have been binge watching Monk on Amazon Prime. I highly recommend it if you need a little relief from the daily stress and just a good little laugh. So what's a person to do? There's a lot of anger, frustration, and anxiety out there. This is where having unity principles and a spiritual connection helps keep me from going bonkers. Let's take the third unity principle, for instance. It says we are co-creators with God. We create our own reality through our thoughts and beliefs. Now, to me, another way of saying this is we become what we think about. So let me ask you, what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about gratitude, peace of mind, love, things from your spirit that bring you joy and happiness? Or are you thinking about things like judgment, lack, struggle, what-ifing yourself into a place of fear, things from your ego? Now, I'm not saying we should all just think wonderful thoughts and everything will be unicorns and rainbows. We are, after all, human. And a little bit of anxiety is only human. The adaptive side of worry is what allows us to anticipate danger and take preventative action. It's what cautions me not to ride my motorcycle down Route 78 at 90 miles an hour without a helmet, because it might be hazardous to my health. But some anxiety is good in a way, because there are only two kinds of people that don't feel any anxiety at all. The first are dead people. They don't feel any anxiety because they're, well, dead. And the second are psychopaths, because they are incapable of any feeling of empathy. I don't know about you, but I prefer not to be dead or a psychopath. Even Jesus himself had his moment of anxiety. When knowing his betrayal was about to happen, he went to the Garden of Gethsemane, where, according to the Gospels, he felt overwhelming sadness and anguish and said, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass me by." Yes, it is only human to have some anxiety, even for Jesus. But when it turns into a daily ritual filled with worry, it can quite literally make us sick. So how do we overcome it? Not by pretending it isn't there. Acknowledge it, but don't focus on it constantly. Use prayer, meditation, and affirmations to fill your head and heart with spiritually based thoughts. Remember, we become what we think about. In relation to COVID, for instance, instead of thoughts of worry about getting sick, concentrate on thoughts of healing and gratitude for the health we do have. Maybe start the day with a little prayer or mantra. Thank you, God, for this day and for the health that I have. Let that run in the background of your subconscious. Your day will start differently. In relation to worry about the economy and our worldly needs, instead of thoughts of, what if the bottom falls out and I'm homeless? Thoughts of gratitude for the food and shelter that I have right now, today, in this moment. In the best-selling book, The Power of Now, author Eckhart Tolle says that life is just a series of present moments. Every moment that you spend worrying about the future or regretting the past is a moment lost, because all you have to live in is the present, the now. You can free yourself from pain by constantly observing your mind and not judging your thoughts. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus gave this advice about anxiety concerning worldly needs. Jesus told his followers not to be worried about food because even the birds are provided for by God. He later continued, "Why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, nor do they spin." I think I heard that in a song recently. Maybe instead of what-ifing ourselves into the worst possible thing that could happen, if we lived more in the moment, we could come to appreciate each moment more fully. Now, in relation to the political divide, instead of ego-based thoughts of judgment about people and their beliefs, try thoughts of love for the person and your common humanity. You know, after service a couple weeks ago, we were sharing things on Zoom, and I shared a story about my next door neighbor, Mike, that I'm going to share again. Mike is a diehard Trump supporter. He's my neighbor. He watches Fox News all day and thinks that they are the only ones that tell the real truth. I, on the other hand, do not, and I think pretty much the opposite. But Mike and I are friends. And despite our opposing views, I think he is one of the kindest, most gentlest souls I have ever met. We were talking recently, and he brought up Donald Trump and what a great job he's doing. He was going on, and he was getting really wound up. Now, I could feel my blood pressure starting to rise, but I kept quiet. He went on saying he just didn't understand Democrats. What's wrong with them? Why do they keep picking on Trump? He was getting increasingly agitated, saying he had a really hard time understanding Democrats or even accepting them. Now, at that moment, I could have lashed out and said something confrontational. But instead, I very gently said, well, then I hope you'll still accept me because, I'm on the other side of the aisle. At that moment, you could feel the political wall between us just melt as he said, "Well, of course I accept you. You're a nice guy." We then had a very civil discussion about police reform. There was no yelling, no name calling, and I think some common ground was achieved. One thing I didn't mention, Mike has stage 4 glioblastoma. Maybe because of that, it caused me to be less judgmental, more willing to see the person and love them despite our differences. It's funny how our differences fade when we're faced with the possibility of death. Suddenly, everything else doesn't seem to matter as much. It reminds me of a story I read recently. A man went to the shore for some sun and fun, but because of social distancing and crowd limitations, the first beach he went to was full. Annoyed and disappointed, he drove around to find another beach. He finally found one that wasn't full, but once he got there, he couldn't believe how many people didn't seem to be social distancing or wearing masks. What's wrong with these people, he thought. Instead of relieving stress, this outing was making him more upset and more stressed out. Then he noticed a commotion nearby on the beach. People were anxiously digging with their hands in the sand, and a woman was crying. She was screaming, "Please, get my baby out." It seems a young boy had been digging in the sand when he must have hit some small sinkhole, and he fell in and was covered over. People were trying to dig him out with their hands as his mom was crying. Lifeguards arrived who joined in the digging and called police. Several minutes went by, and the police arrived, only to have to go back and get shovels. More time went by. Cops and lifeguards were digging furiously. Onlookers were in shock. Relatives were crying and praying. Would they get to the little boy in time? Would he still be alive? Finally, after several more minutes, they reached the boy, but he seemed unresponsive. It took several more minutes to extricate him and start CPR. As paramedics arrived, they brought a stretcher, and it wasn't looking too good for the little boy, as the brain cannot survive more than 5 minutes without some sort of severe damage or possibly death. They continued to perform CPR on him as they carted him towards the ambulance. Everyone who had witnessed what had happened was visibly shaken. Then all of a sudden a cheer went up, and people started shouting, "He's alive!" The little boy's head popped up on the stretcher, and cheers and tears of joy filled the air. People couldn't believe the miracle they had just witnessed. It was then that it occurred to the man. All the judgment and anxiety he had been feeling that day about people and their behavior all melted away as everyone was brought together in the concern for the life of a little boy, a stranger they didn't even know. Yes, there are many things that separate us, but there are many more that bring us together. It shouldn't take a crisis to bring us together, but sometimes the worst of times bring out the best in people. We need to be vigilant every day to care for those around us. Jesus taught us that. We will make it through these times. We just have to support each other and appreciate the Christ in all of us. So finally, here's a few other suggestions to help get you through these times. Do you feel out of control? Do something to feed your soul. Whatever that means for you, let me suggest a few. Sing a song, play ping pong, grow some tomatoes, roast some potatoes, learn to cook, read a book, exercise your body so you won't feel so shoddy, put on some pants, do a little dance, take a hike, ride a bike, listen to tunes, howl at the moon, binge watch a show, learn to sew, take a photo, take a drive in your auto, catch up with some friends, because true friendship never ends. Tell someone you're thinking of you thought of them and send them love. Take a long bath and don't forget to laugh. Say a little prayer and turn over your cares. Be sure to meditate. Take time to appreciate. Smell the flowers beside you. Feel the power inside you, and you'll reduce your sorrow. You'll have hope for tomorrow. If we concentrate on spiritually based thoughts, thoughts of wonderful relationships, great health, abundance, gratitude, and love, and be in the moment, the less we'll be able to concentrate on ego-based thoughts such as lack, limitation, judgment, suffering, and worry. Whichever one we think about grows. Those that we release and do not focus on shrink. The choice is ours. I am so grateful for this time with all of you, right here, right now. That's what I'm thinking about. What are you thinking about? And now, time for our meditation.
Thank you, buddy. That's wonderful. As we go into meditation this morning, I was thinking about our prayer team and the affirmative steps we use to affirm prayer for others. And I thought it would be beneficial as I bring you into meditation this morning that I affirm these steps for each of us as individuals. So take a moment and get comfortable in your seat. Lay back, put your feet on the floor. Let your body be supported by the chair. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable. And take inventory. Start at your toes and work up. If you're feeling any stress, kind of stretch and release, and to begin slowly to think about your breath. Let's slow everything down. Breathe in to the count of 4. Breathe out to the count of 6. Breathe in as you relax. Exhale all the stress and the worry. Inhale the peace and the joy that we are. And as we focus in the silence, focus on these powers that are within all of us. I see myself as 100% whole, complete, and at one with a loving presence and power. I am knowing that I am greater than my thoughts, feelings, judgments, stories, and experience. I know in this moment that I already have all the answers to any problem or situation, and that those answers come from the inner light of the Holy Spirit. I see that I, in prayer, contribute to my own awakening right now. I am remembering that in reality there is no other, and that as I become centered and aware of the presence of God in me, as me, minds are healed and prayer is done. I am willing to demonstrate that I know all these things in the way that I live and pray. And as we sit together in a joined silence, may these thoughts bring you peace. And now, in the shared silence, as we focus on our inner strengths, send that inner strength and love to others. Anyone in need of prayer, comfort, connection, guidance. All those who may feel alone, we know they are not. All those who may feel hopeless, we know there is hope within them. All those who may be ill, we know their spirit as whole, complete, and forever. And now I invite you to hear the sound of my voice. Begin to focus again on your breath, bringing yourself back to this moment, this time, this space, but holding on to the connection that is eternal, holding on to the knowledge of our oneness with each other and the world. And when you're ready, open your eyes. I think he's the terrific one. That was a great talk. Welcome
Thanks.
back, everybody. Now it's our opportunity to give. So as we think about sharing our time, talents, and treasures, however we choose to give, remember the act of giving and receiving is the same. We cannot have one without the other. As we share our gifts, we strengthen our community, we strengthen each other, we strengthen ourselves. And we know that whatever we give returns to us tenfold. And we are grateful for this knowledge. So however you donate, think about that as we share our blessing. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I choose to give and all that I am open to receive, and I am grateful.
And now